We're in a grief and gratitude series, so describe for us a time of grief for you.
So I lost my dad in 2018. Really suddenly, he had a heart attack in my house. We just had a heart attack and died. The man was laughing 2 hours before and just went to bed. And then next thing I know, I get a phone call. I didn't live at the house at the time. I was in my apartment, which is like literally a 5 minute drive away, maybe 4 minutes. And it was my little sister. And I I will never forget the way her voice, what she sounded like and what she said and the way that I got up. I was here within minutes. And
Mm.
they worked on him and worked on him and worked on him for over an hour. And then what I call the death doctor came into the room because he wasn't there at the beginning. He wasn't part of any of it. He was the one that called the shots. And I think I knew when he walked into the room. And I remember when they said, I'm sorry. And I
Ah,
knew that they was going to stop working on him. I just remember, I don't think I screamed. I just remember turning around and looking at my mum and looking at my little sister and just knowing that whatever world I lived in, it was never going to be the same again. It was, yeah, that moment for me. And I remember the echoes. It's like everything went into slow motion. I remember the echoes of my mum's scream, but I
oh,
don't think I screamed. I think I just squeezed my eyes and I squeezed my hands and I put my hands over my ears because I couldn't take it. And that period of grief, I would love to say, has come to an end or come to something, but it's been 6 years. And I think year five was actually the toughest out of all of them. Year six has been easier in some ways than all the years so far, but you still have times. You have the Father's Day and his birthday and my birthday and Christmas and just like every time you get over some sort of remembrance date of some sort, you get to it. You're working towards another one. You're working towards the next one all the time. I think it's very different when you lose a parent. I lost my granddad, his dad, 2 years later, then his mum 2 years after that, which was this year actually in June. But nothing compares to the loss of a parent. Nothing compares to one of your creators. It just there's nothing. I haven't experienced obviously the loss of a child or the loss of a sibling. God forbid I experience anything like that soon. But there are some losses that you lose a part of yourself that and you will never gain that part back. And I think the whole purpose of me starting my social media and going down the path that I went down is because all I could really find was just like people that were talking about, oh, you do get over it. Do you know what I mean? It was always like that further part down the line of you finding happiness after grief. And there was just no one really talking about the real gory, horrible part of it and the blood of it and the sweat of it and the tears of it. And I hated that. It made me so mad because I just thought to myself, am I not grieving right? Do you know what I mean? Why am I was angry for at least 2 years. I was cursing at God for at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I
mm-hmm.
didn't want to, I couldn't engage. I was up and down. The shock of it didn't even let me feel it for a good 8 months. I didn't start grieving for a year. Like I was just, and I was so deeply hurt and so deeply burned by it. And I couldn't find anyone that was talking about it like that. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe there's something. And there was obviously the people that really let you down in that time. My then partner that would just say that I should be further along by now. I should be better by now. Which only 6 months after I've just buried my dad. There's the friends that abandon you because you're just a burden now. You've got no fun. You got nothing to offer people no more. Um, the family that really disappoint you because they then talk about money and stuff like that, and you're just like, I don't even know what you're talking about. It's just so much disappointment that when you lose someone, the grief is not just about that person, it's about all the other people that go along with it.
Oh
There's a lot of
gosh,
people that you
yes,
bury,
yes,
a lot
right.
of people that you bury on that day. You don't know about it on the day of the funeral, but later on you realize how many people you actually buried that day.
So I'm curious, Because it sounds like your childhood was rough, and yet you had this tremendous grief when your dad died. Were you able to reconcile a lot? Your mom was there, your mom was there. Were you able to reconcile a lot of what had happened?
So I left home at 16, I returned home at 19, I left again. And then a few years after that, I was actually in a mental institute for a couple of years. So during that time, we had something called family therapy. And I decided during that period of time that I did not want to be estranged from my family anymore. I decided that I didn't want to be a person that was just telling my family and shouting at them and causing them pain because they caused me pain. And then and then being that person that's just like in a way you're just carrying it on. Do you know what I mean? You may not be violent, but you're still carrying it on. And I just decided that I was going to be a person that wasn't going to scream and shout at my dad to tell him to get him to understand that they were wrong, him and my mum. But it was I wanted to show them that there was a different way, the
Mm.
way that you know that you were raised and whatever. And really, it was only through family therapy that I had a bit of more of understanding as to why my dad was how he was, just how
Ah,
he was raised, you know. And you really do have to take time to understand the background of where your parents have come from when they are just passing on violent behaviors and things like that. He was what he one day in family therapy, that man came to family therapy for about a year and he didn't say a word. He would just sit there. My dad was a military man. He was very, very strong, very resilient. He would just sit there. And I used to think he hates me. He hates being here. He doesn't want to be here. One day that man opened his mouth and he talked about what his dad did to him
ah,
and how he thought that he was just giving us a milder version and that he was doing well by giving us a milder version of what was done to him. And it was then that I started to realize that what I thought was so much hatred within him was actually just him doing what he thought was right. Do you know what I mean? And then our relationship from there, it took a good sort of five to yeah, like a lot more years. There was a lot of years. It wasn't just the family therapy. It was a lot more years that he slowly changed. He became the best man ever in the last sort of 5 years, 5 to 7 years of his life. He was the funniest man in the world. He just was so great, and he became just it's so unreal. He became the softest man. He was so soft. His heart was so big, and he just changed. And he also, in some ways, became estranged from his own family in a little bit. I think he then just became so aware of everything, but it took a lot to get that man to that point. You know, not everybody can do that. Not everybody. I'm not saying that if you go through that with your parents, that everybody will come to that part of their journey. Not necessarily, but
right.
he did. And my little sister as well, she softened that man a lot. Like she's much younger than me, so she was like our baby of the family, you know. And then she softened him a lot as well. And just that whole everything that I went through was to make him understand that there is a different way to do things, you know, and that you can. That man only told me that he loved me for the first time, I think about 1 or 2 years before he passed, not even a
Oh,
year before he passed. And I remember the day that he did that, and I was just like, I put the phone down. I was like, oh my God, my dad told me that he loved me. It was such a big moment for me. But everyone else was like, obviously, if I said that to someone, they would just be like, what? Like, do you know how old you are?
yeah.
And you're like excited about your dad telling you that he loved you. But he just didn't, he never knew how to express love like that. Do you know what I mean? So when he did do that, it was a big deal. But it also reminds me like how much he actually changed. He really did change a lot. So yeah, I think the saddest thing for me is that I only got those last years out of him, that I really did get close to him, and that he just became this amazing person. I wish that there was longer. Yeah, I feel very cheated by the fact that he died when he was quite young, when he had only just come to be the best man that he'd become.
You were able to break a generational cycle through
Mm,
obviously a tremendous amount of difficulty, and it came, and that back to the sacrificial, it came at a huge price, and you didn't know at the time. You were just trying to survive, but
mm,
you had all these different roads you ended up taking, all these um you know, your mental health and all suffering because of all of this. And then through time and through working and through the family therapy being sort of the beginning, the catalyst, actually you were the catalyst, you know, you
Mm.
by your leaving and saying, I'm not going to be a part of this anymore. Whether you said it
Mm.
in words or not, that's still the
Oh no, I
message.
did.
You broke
I did.
that cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's
that was my
incredible.
intention. Thank you. I appreciate it. That was my intention. And I had that in my head. This generation is going to end with me. This I'm going to do this. And I was only when I was 16, I thought I was an adult. I thought I was grown, I thought I was this
Yes.
big woman. But when I saw my little sister get to 16 and I realized she was a child, like she really was a child. And it was only then when I realized that I was a kid. I really was a kid, and I was running around the streets, with this thing in my head of it's going to end with me. This cycle is going to end with me. We're not doing pain with pain. We're not doing hate with hate. We're not carrying on this violent generation. This is going to end. And it's so. If there's one thing that I could say to people, it takes one human being, one human being out of the entirety of my entire family that turned around and said, no, this is not going to carry on. This is not good enough. I don't accept this. And the entire generation stopped. And
Yes.
it just goes to show like how many people really do sit by and just watch things and just carry on, carry patterns on, carry cycles on, or just do nothing. And that should you choose to make such an impact like that, I'm not saying it's easy and I'm not saying it's not painful, but it's doable.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're proof of that, and
Okay.
you didn't the thing that is so incredible is that you didn't really know at that time where you were going to end up. I mean, look at how when you turn around and look at the trajectory of your life from, I mean, all the way, but most especially from 16 on, the journey that it brought you through, it's really nothing short of miraculous, really,
Mm,
that
thank you.
you broke the cycle, your whole family dynamic changed, people evolved into a better version of themselves. It's so beautiful in and amongst the mess and the pain of it all. Incredible.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. My
Thank
goodness.
you.
Okay, so would you say, I mean, would you say that you're grateful you've had all that experience? Obviously, you probably wish that you could have just pressed a button, just all went easily.
It's tough. I think when you go through that much trauma, the amount that I went through, and then you lose that person as well on top of that, it's very tough to say grateful. I I believe I fulfilled a purpose of mine. I believe that that was destined over my life anyway, no matter what. And I'm grateful that I fulfilled it. I'm grateful that I was strong enough to do that. But it is a shame that I lost my entire childhood to
Yeah,
it. My childhood and most of my life really, because it took many, many years to even get my mind out of the torment that it went into because of those years. Do you know what I mean?
right.
So it's lifelong. It was lifelong. I lost my entire childhood. I lost my teens. I lost my 20s. Like I'm not grateful that I had to do that, but I'm
Right.
grateful that whatever was put into me to fulfill that purpose and fulfill that mission was put into me, and that I was able to identify that I could, you know.
And I think that is something that not everybody can do. And yeah, I can really can't understand you're not grateful for the experience, but you're grateful um, for what came out of it, kind of
Mm,
the after effect of all
yeah,
that you went through. That,
yeah.
yeah. Let's see. Sorry, somebody is trying to get a hold of me and I have it on do not disturb.
Okay.
How would you advise somebody grieving? What would you say? What would you say? How would you advise them?
I get asked this question all the
Do
time.
you?
People message me.
Okay,
People
good.
message me all the time. Not ask the question, but people message me all the time saying to me, "I've just lost XYZ and I'm really struggling. Like, can you give me advice?" And I guess it's just because of the poetry and the spoken word that I put out there. And sometimes people get the impression that I'm not the one that's crying more than everyone else. Do you know what I mean? And I say to them, like, please don't look at my work and think that because I give you guys strength with the things that I write and the things that I say, that I'm not the person that's crying more than everyone. Do you know what I mean? I am a crybaby proper. I think the one thing that I would say is don't expect your grief to not change you as a human being. There is no possibility that you will ever go back to the person that you was before. And
Hmm.
it's really hard to accept that. But I think the holding on to who you were before and the trying to get back to who you were before is the part that makes you hurt the most. And the realization that you won't is also a really deep, depressing part of it as well. But then when you come to the conclusion and the knowledge that why should you? Why should I? I love this person so much, do you know what I mean? And this person was such a huge part of my life. It's honorable that I will never be the same person again because I can't be the same person again, not without that person. I can create someone else. I can get to another version of myself. And in some ways, the person that I have become mentally now is my favorite person of all time. I wish I was this person so many years ago. Do you know what I mean? This is my favorite person. I am my favorite version of myself. But it didn't come without all of the loss and all the grief and all the pain. I wouldn't ever, ever tell anyone that there's a silver lining. I wouldn't ever tell anyone that it gets easier with time, that time is a healer. I think that's one of the worst pieces of advice that I ever was given. Time is a healer. Time is not a healer at all. I have watched people, even people in my family, go through 5, 6 years and get worse, even worse and even worse and even worse because they choose not to do any healing within the time that they've been given.
Right.
You are given the time. It's what you choose to do within the time that you're given as to whether you will heal or not. You are the healer. You will heal yourself over time. But time is not the healer. Please don't expect that you will just sort of lay around within your grief and hold on to the bitterness and the anger and stuff like that, and that you'll just get better
Hmm.
over time. You don't. And I think you have to just be really patient with yourself. There's people that message me after 6 months of losing someone and say to me, I'm really struggling. I don't know if I can go back to work. Like, I just feel like I should be doing this and I should be doing that and I should be doing that by now. It's 6 months. 6 months after losing somebody that you absolutely cherish so much, you know? And like I said, I didn't even grieve for a year. I woke up in the middle of the night one night after a year and the shock, the way that it hit me, and I just completely fell apart. And I
Mm.
had this realization that my dad has passed away. He's dead. He's gone. And it completely shattered my entire existence. And it was the second and third year that I did that whole screaming in my pillow, laying in my bed, and the whole day is passing and I'm not even getting up out of my bed. Do you know what I mean? It was
Right.
very, very delayed in my experience. I think the way that he passed, because it was such a shock, it's like my mind wouldn't allow me to process it because I think it was too much. I think it would have destroyed, it would have actually, I wouldn't have repaired myself in any way, shape, or form if my mind had allowed that amount of pain to hit me in one go.
Right.
So it's like your mind is protecting you in some way.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing as you were saying that. It was a kind of yeah, protection and a survival. I mean, there's that
Mm,
part of you that will do whatever is necessary to survive,
mm,
typically. Now, of course, not
mm.
always. How would you what kind of advice would you give in terms of practicing gratitude? And obviously the loss of your dad has really shaped you in so many ways. And I know that you're very grateful for the changes that he made as a person, as a dad. How would you help? How would you advise somebody to practice that gratitude, to look for ways to be grateful?
I think for me, the most important thing that I've taught myself is my morning routine, which is the first things that I do when I wake up in the morning before I open my eyes. I always pray, and I never used to do that. I pray and I talk to myself about the things that I am grateful for that I have now that I didn't have before. And like affirmations, I say what I want, I say who I am, I say where I've come from and things like that. And it's really important that I do these things before I even open my eyes. Before I pick up that phone and look at social media, Any of that stuff, it all has to come second. Those things that you feed yourself in your mind, they take practice. And they're not just, oh, I do it every now and then. It's not like that. Not for me anyway. Maybe some people can, but it's not like that for me. I have too many demons in my head. The routine has to be strong. It has to be strict and it has to be strong. And it has to be something that I stick to all the time. Gratitude for people that, especially people that have suffer with depression, manic depression, a lot of bouts of sadness, grief, things like that, is very tough for you to even think and comprehend what you might be grateful for in this moment because you feel so cheated, so angry, so just venomous towards the world for what has been stolen and taken away from you. But you start with the little things. I think the things that I used to start with was I'm grateful. Like I would stand next to my heater. We call it a heater. I think you guys, I don't know what you call it. You call it like the heating system in your house.
Yeah, heater.
You call it a heater. Okay. So
Yes.
I used to, if the heating came on when it was really cold during the winter, I would stand next to the heater and say, I'm so grateful that I get to feel this heating right now. Oh my God, this is like such an amazing feeling. I brush my teeth. And when I'm brushing my teeth, I would say, I'm so grateful that I have toothpaste and that I can brush my teeth and that I can have clean
Yes.
teeth. Do you know what I mean? They were the smallest, tiniest little things that I could actually get my mind to wrap around that
Yes.
those are reality things that I'm grateful for. If you try and go to the big things straight away, like the big economical things and the big worldly things, then
Right.
you're just gonna fail because it's too big, it's too far
It's
ahead, it's
yes,
too
yes.
overwhelming. So
Exactly.
start with the little things and
Start
practice
with the
those
little
first.
things. That is
Yeah.
excellent advice. Is there anything that you didn't get to say that you want to say as we wrap up? And then I'm going to ask, where everybody can find you.
I think there's one thing, the one message that I would just love to get across to people is just that the people that you watch the most and the things that you see that they're doing and things that you see that they're achieving and you think, oh my God, that's such an inspiration. There is no light that comes from people that you feel, if you watch me and you feel light, that you must know that that's come from the darkest places. They come from the darkest places. And if anybody that you watch and you are inspired by can do something, you can do it too. Don't ever tell yourself that you can't do something. Anything is possible. You are capable. If I can do something, I'm just some British girl from Chatham in Kent. Do you know what I mean? I'm no one. I'm no one. And I've been through the darkest things. If I can turn my life around, so can you.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And I think more people need to believe that. Where can people find you?
So I'm Havva Official, literally on everything. So HAVVA is how you spell my name, and then the word official afterwards. So Insta, TikTok. I've just released a book with all my poetry and spoken word. It's called A Voice, and the links are all in my bios of my social media. So
It's
YouTube,
called
Insta, TikTok,
it's called a voice.
A Voice. Yeah, it's called Turning
Yeah.
Pain into Power. Yeah, so it's just like because that's really what I did. I took all my pain and all my grief, and then I started writing poetry about it. Not that I didn't write poetry before, I did, but it just obviously wasn't ever about the same things. And then that's how people kind of related to me, and that's how my social media following grew because I made sure that I was talking about the most painful parts of it because, like I said, I couldn't find that before, and that frustrated me. So I wanted to make people feel I was so alone through my journey of grief. I had nothing that I could relate to. And I wanted to be that relatable person for other people.
That's I just really am moved by that. That
Thank you.
I think it is so important that because I don't want to, you're not done, you're still in that process. You are being authentic and vulnerable and transparent in wanting to share that and be that for someone the way you wished more that someone had been that for you. And that is a
Mm,
beautiful way to pay it forward. This has been really very stirring for me in many ways. As and very inspirational because we just met right when we got on this call, which I think is a lot of fun, and it's how cool just to dive in, let's just
yeah.
dive in and just have ourselves a conversation. And I'm gonna go check out some of your poetry.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Hava.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.